Australing Welcome.
Сайн байцгаана уу хүнд үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр орой манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Швейцарын Женев, Цюрихийн их сургуулийн хуулийн профессор Ноён Ауер оролцож байна.
Доктор профессор Андрес Ауер. Женев болон Цюрхийн их сургуулийн үндсэн хуулийн эрх зүйн хүндэт профессор. Цюрих дахь Умбрихт хуулийн пүсийн зөвлөх хуульч. 1948 оны 2 дугаар сарын 29-нд Швейцарт төрсөн. 1971 онд Швейцарын Нью-Шайтлын их сургуулийг хуулийн бакалавр зэрэгтээ төгссөн. 1973 онд Америк нэгдсэн улсын Техас мужийн Даллас хотын Өмнөдийн методист их сургуульд хуулийн магистрийн зэрэг, 1975 онд Швейцарын Нью-Шайтлын их сургуульд докторийн зэрэг хамгаалсан. 1980-аас 2008 оны хооронд Женевийн их сургуулийн үндсэн хуулийн эрх зүйн профессор, 2000-аас 2003 оны хооронд Женевийн их сургуулийн хуулийн факультетийн декан, 2008-аас 2013 оны хооронд Цюрхийн их сургуулийн нийтийн эрх зүйн профессорын албан тушаалыг тус хашиж байсан. 1980 оноос Швейцарын Санкт Галлен хотод хуульч, 2007 оноос Европын үндсэн хуулийн эрх зүйн хяналт сэтгүүлийн редакцийн зөвлөлийн гишүүнээр ажиллаж байгаа. Шууд ардчлалын дэлхийд тэргүүлэх судалгааны байгууллага болох Авру хот дахь ардчлалын судалгааны төв байгууллагын салбар шууд ардчлалын судалгааны төвийг 1993 онд үүсгэн байгуулсан. 2008 онд Женевийн олон улсын хүмүүнлэг эрх зүй, хүний эрхийн төв болж нэрээ өөрчилсөн олон улсын хүмүүнлэг эрх зүйн их сургуулийг 2003 онд үүсгэн байгуулагчдын нэг. 2007-оос 2013 оны хооронд Арау хот дахь ардчлалын судалгааны төвийг үүсгэн байгуулагч захирлын албан тушаалыг хашиж байсан. 2013 оноос Цюрих дахь Умбрихт хуулийн пүсийн зөвлөх хуульчаар ажиллаж байгаа.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, what important mission brought you to Mongolia?
The one topic that I'm dealing with 40 years already about now, that's democracy.
And in particular, direct democracy.
And in particular, direct democracy.
And you have been founding the organization, which was leading sort of a think tank, not only in Switzerland, but also for all around the world.
Yes.
Tell us about this organization.
The Center for Democracy Studies in Switzerland, which I contributed to found. The founder has projects running on all continents, from Africa to Latin America and Asia, and of course Europe. So we are a research center for democracy and direct democracy in particular.
And when you do touch the issue, make a research on the issue as a democracy, right? An important issue like a democracy. How do you find its importance globally? And would it be any other alternative, you think, for social structure of countries?
I think it is strengthening, and one can feel that people in many countries of the world are no longer entirely satisfied by the representative government scheme that is traditional in many countries. They feel that the people should have more to say. They feel that important decisions should not be imposed on the people, but people should be part of the decision process.
But you talked about the democracy, and democracy inside the system may have different forms. One is a representative.
Yes, of course, there are different types of democracy. There are different instruments of democracy. The most basic one, of course, everybody knows, is the popular election. Is the election by the people of a representative body, be it parliament, and then the election also of presidents and of other. But then you have more and more people who not only want to elect every 4 or 5 years a parliament with their representative, but they want to say yes or no to projects, to constitutional amendments, or to important decisions, and that's where direct democracy steps in.
Which requires not only 4 years, maybe the time period is different for these
It's
sort of
totally different.
questions.
It's no limited term.
No limit, yes.
It depends on what type of referendum is institutionalized. Is it a mandatory one or is it an optional one?
Okay.
It all depends.
Before we go to the second part, I would like to ask several questions that
Please.
of concern for Mongolians.
Yes.
We have been electing our representatives to the decision-maker offices for quite some time, 25 years now. But however, we find that still they do not meet our expectations. We see our elected officials being corrupt, and they have even our Mongolian parliament has a special status. The constitutionally we cannot call them legally responsible for certain things if we find them doing wrong. And then people are not very happy. We cannot have them hold responsible for the actions we don't like. And obviously you have been seen certain cases, not only in Mongolia. What would be your answer to people on that?
Well, I think the framers of the Mongolian constitution were very much aware of the fact that it is maybe not sufficient to elect president and to elect parliament and to elect other bodies, because direct democracy has its roots in the Mongolian constitution. It is provided for in 2 articles for the state level, although it has not been put into practice yet, with one exception. I think in October 1940 you had the only national referendum in your country on the independence. But it's there. I mean, and the constitution provides in Article 3 that the people can also take their own decisions, and they do not only act through their representatives. So the roots of direct democracy are entrenched in the Mongolian constitution already. But it needs to be put into a law that specifies the instruments and the means and the procedures for putting it into action.
Welcome. Because this corruption prevailing, sort of becoming bigger and bigger, people are not happy, would like, for example, to call back the representative they have elected. Yet we cannot do it.
The recall is not provided for in the constitution. That is right, the recall instrument. But I think you must make a main distinction between the representative democracy, where people elect a person or several persons and maybe recall them. Direct democracy doesn't deal with persons. It deals with acts. It deals with ideas. And then people decide on that, not only on persons.
We don't have this direct democracy, as you see.
Yes, you can have it. You have it already.
We have, like you said, in 1940, just once.
Yeah.
But who stops us, and why these our representatives don't say about that? Why wouldn't do that?
I think they are actually very much concerned about this lacking instruments of direct democracy. And it's funny to say that when direct democracy was first introduced in Switzerland, in the cantons during the 19th century, when it was introduced in the United States of America on the state level at the end of the 19th century, it was exactly because they wanted to fight corruption, because they wanted to stop corrupt government on the local and regional level. It has always been the main objective of these instruments of direct democracy to bring the people in and to make them possibly stop or frame the...
When was it set in Switzerland, you said again, please?
In Switzerland it started, well, the very idea, it's interesting, it's not the Swiss who invented direct democracy at all. It was the French. During the French Revolution, Condorcet, in their draft constitution of 1791, had already the first idea about making it possible for people to challenge a law that has been enacted by a political body. But then, of course, Napoleon came in France, and there was no more question of direct democracy. But the Swiss during the 19th century, from 1930 to 1830 to 1875, in the Swiss cantons, they introduced slowly these instruments of referendum, of popular initiative, and it was always the same objective, like you have it here now in Mongolia, fight corruption, or try to fight corruption with this means of direct democracy.
So what you're saying is referendum, polls, the sort of people's decisions on the particular issues at any given time needed, have been instrumental in Switzerland.
Yes.
During your own development and during your this political processing. Then the Americans took this idea.
Yes.
And how was it useful for Americans to combat corruption?
Well, well, corruption still does exist a little bit, and I would even say, even in Switzerland, you have corruption at some level.
Yeah, sure.
But it's still the idea that to break the monopoly of a certain elite that is collecting and dominating the political system. This is corruption. To fight corruption, maybe it's useful to have direct democracy. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely 100% sure that corruption will disappear.
Please tell us the good cases where the direct democracy instruments were successfully used in any given countries, any countries.
They are successfully used.
Please tell us about some good cases.
They're successfully used in my country. They're successfully used in many other countries of Europe, Slovenia, the Baltic states, Italy, Ireland, Denmark, Uruguay is very active, and so on and so forth. You know, I think the main advantage, I think, of direct democracy is to make the state action more legitimate. Because if a decision is taken by a majority of parliament, then the minority will say, hey, let's wait until the next election, maybe we're a majority and we will change this decision. If the people takes the decision, then it has a legitimacy that can only with much difficulty be challenged by anybody. Direct democracy is complicated, it takes time, but it makes the state more tied to the citizens, and it makes the decisions taken by the parliament or by the president more legitimate.
Some countries have two chambers.
Yes.
Well, parliament, which in parliamentarian governance in a way helps better, say, having a representative of all layers in a society. In a country like Mongolia, where uni-chamber, we have 76 electorates and the members represent. And now we are in debate in Mongolia. Maybe we should have two chambers. Maybe because our role of president, for example, are rather symbolic. And unfortunately, in many cases, he is a smart man, talks good, but unfortunately, even his own party, former government does not, parliament does not listen to him as much as he could wish. So, how do you see these connections in a case like in Mongolia?
You mean by introducing maybe some instruments of direct democracy?
Yeah, or maybe, yeah, does the two chambers will help, or one chamber is better, if there's any sort of linkage in between them?
Well, I think in most bicameral systems, the second chamber is here that not only the people are represented in parliament, but also the different constituencies in federal states or in centralized states by decentralization. The idea of the second chamber, the original idea, was to give a double representation of the people and of the constituencies.
Maybe it's even better.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do directly with our topic of direct democracy.
I see.
That is a different schemes of the classical representative democracy model.
Okay, Switzerland is a confederation, right?
Federal state.
Federal state. Mongolia is not, for example.
That's true.
It's one mono sort of nation. Then this, the idea of direct direct democracy, will it work here?
Oh yes, it could work here, absolutely. There are many non-federal states, unitary states, that do have instruments of direct democracy. In Ireland, the constitution must be ratified by the people in a referendum, in a mandatory referendum, and Ireland is not a federal state. And other examples.
Any changes in constitution in Ireland also must be approved by direct
democracy, by the people, like in Switzerland, like in Slovenia, I think, and in Estonia and Uruguay and many other countries.
Well, interesting, because now we are discussing about certain, we find changes we need in our constitution. Now even quite recently, the Parliament created a special group, commission, or group, whatever, to prepare the amendments for the constitutions. Even say they brought with one idea, this particular, the representative now, and they changed the constitutions. In Mongolia, we don't need approval by the direct referendum.
You can have it. There is a possibility in your constitution for a referendum on constitutional amendments, but it needs a decision by 2/3 of the State Foral. If 2/3 of the members of the State Foral decide that a constitutional amendment should go into a referendum, then they can do it already now. It doesn't need any other specification.
And they may go without also referendum, just proof constitution?
No, not according to the existing constitution.
So this 76%, they may just change constitutions?
Yes,
themselves?
No, a qualified majority. For voting an amendment of the constitution without referendum, I think it's 3/4 of the members.
3/4?
3/4 of the members of the Foral can only change the constitution.
Ah, okay.
But 2/3 of them can decide to put the question to a referendum on that.
Do you recall any classic cases where referendum had changed the path or the path of the reform in a particular country?
Oh, in my country, the referendum changes every year very, very important aspects of our social and political life. We had, maybe you heard about it, about 1 year ago, in February 14, there was a popular initiative on the constitutional level that wanted to restrict dramatically immigration. And it has been approved. So now we are fighting with this provision and trying to see how we can manage. You know, Switzerland is a very open country. We have free movement of persons, and now they voted for no more free movement of persons.
Which meaning?
Means that every year the parliament should set a maximum number of immigrants, and then if this contingent is attained, no more foreign people can come. Imagine for Swiss companies who are very connected internationally, and for Swiss workers also. It's very difficult.
But they just bring people for some time, not for forever.
Not forever, but even for working in companies, you need a permit, and it's very strict.
Well, I see now working permit is also becoming strict.
No, it's not working. It's the immigration. It's to come to Switzerland for longer than 3 months as a tourist, and then to stay there and work in companies or in government or whatever. So this is just an example to say how strongly in my country popular referendums affect the political life of the whole country.
See, now Mongolians are looking for a better way to keep accountable our elected officials. And what we found out now is political parties, which is only institutions to take power, legislative, executive, and judicial power in this country, the political parties, they don't report their financing publicly, though there is a law. Nobody can enforce them because these powers in their hand, and we found the financing of political parties are where they sell spring of Mongolian corruptions. What do you think about that?
If I'm well informed, it's a new law, the class account law, which has entered into force with this month's beginning of this month, and I think it tries to fight.
No,
exactly
it has to do with only public offices. It doesn't say about the political parties. And that's why we are even demanding that this glass purse law should, first of all, touch the political parties.
But political parties do get money from the government, don't they?
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Not completely. That's the whole reason.
Okay.
That's why people, under the name of donation to their political parties, they buy political power, seats. So obviously many, senior democratic countries now, mature democratic countries have gone through this, at which point they have decided to make the political parties financing, campaign financing in particular, open and transparent.
It's the trend in most democracies nowadays that political parties' finances must be open and must be checked, if necessary, by the people or by an agency. But it's funny to say, in my country, in Switzerland, and we pretend to be a model democracy, we have no public account of party financing and campaign financing. There are almost no rules because we think this is a civil society issue and the state should not deal with these matters because it makes things awfully complicated.
So don't you have a situation where, because you don't know where the money comes from, party who has a lot of money have a more chance to win, and also because they have because they have a debt to somebody, they make certain decisions in favor of debtors.
You know,
creditors,
we can afford in Switzerland not to have these financing rules because people are not stupid. They are not voting in favor of a party because this party has more money than the other. They are not voting in favor or against a proposal because the proponents of this proposal have invested much money in the campaign financing. Even if they see that, hey, this party is spending too much on that, so I will not vote for that party because something is wrong there. So I agree that we have this privilege.
But I understand that.
Okay.
You are one of the richest country, and per capita you have a much higher living standard than any other country almost in the world, except few. That's why you can afford that. But in a country where 1/3 is poor, like in Mongolia under poverty line, this is something, they vote with their stomach, how we say, by their stomach.
I understand.
So in that circumstances, yes, in that circumstances, we really demand these political parties.
Sure.
And we have, I think, the cause of our current problems are corruption, and corruption comes from political parties.
Yes.
So that's why people now they are in pursuing of the right way to solve these issues. That's why I kept asking all these questions.
Yeah.
Now let's go to another level of direct democracy. Now I want to talk about the capacity or the competence of local community. We have 21 IMAX provinces, and at this level, they should solve many of their own problems themselves, should decide upon what they will do, how much they will allow mineral resources extracted, whatever. It's like, this is a very hard issue, but however the local community should have a voice. But it should have such a voice that on the other hand, not blocking or not developing or whole countries move. What is this delicate ratio of power between central in the unitarian country like Mongolia?
Yeah.
Right?
This is the dilemma of a unitary country that wants to give more power to the local units without deciding clearly, be it in the constitution or in a law, what level of government has the power to deal with what matters. In the constitution of Mongolia, there is nothing. In the law on the administration of the local units, there is nothing. So I can see kind of a contradiction that the government now and many people, I believe, want to give the people on the local communities the power to decide certain issues. So they try to introduce elements of direct democracy on the BAG level, on the SUM level, on the IMAG level. Very nice. And we are working actually now on this project precisely. But on the other hand, nobody has told the people in the BAG what are the matters on which you can make any decisions. And so this needs to be completed in a way. So starting with defining the instruments of direct democracy in the local level, but then also starting the central government or parliament must say, hey, on this matter, you are autonomous. You can decide what you want, and we will respect the decision that we will take.
Welcome. Based on this, your observations, what are the major issues dividing this power between the levels? What are those, the intrinsic, the most important issues that the local community must have?
Oh, this is impossible for me to to put like this
in
in an abstract way. Well, you can say local matters in general are to be settled by local communities. But what happens with mining permits? Is mining permit a decision that can be taken by a BAG, or isn't it a national issue where the government, at least on the IMAG level, but probably on the national level, should have their say?
Yeah, that's the difficulty.
It's difficult.
That's the confusion, because now ordinary nomads, you go to his area, you start drilling.
Yeah.
The guy is coming, this is my pasture land, what the hell you're doing?
Right.
And he will he will show that this is my permission. Then they
Who
say,
gave him the permission?
Who gave you the permission?
Yeah.
This is my father's, grandfather's land, and you are suddenly drilling in my winter place. So then this local, and the same issue on now we have a big issue in Mongolia of privatization of pasture land. For nomadic culture, where winter conditions can be different in local areas, west and east, the people used to move where the better grass land. And then the next time you may move here, so that this movement should be sort of a part of the culture.
It's
and
difficult.
yet, we have a problem with sort of grooming the land. Sometimes it's feeling nobody is there. So do you recall any similar nomadic culture country with vast land which solved this sort of issues better?
I couldn't give you an example of this. I'm sorry. Coming from a country where nomads have disappeared many centuries ago, and we are not. But you know, the problem is still actually the same. We have, for instance, the government has a plan for atomic waste. Where are we placing atomic waste? And what place are we drilling the holes for letting the atomic waste?
Yes.
And there, local communities say, hey, no, not in my garden. I want it to be somewhere else. So we have the same conflict between people are directly affected by the fact that this atomic waste will be located in their area, and the national government, of course, is obliged to find some places where we can.
It's a very interesting issue. How many atomic power stations you have, nuclear power stations?
About 10.
10. And how many % of your energy consumption you use from them?
Less than France, and depending on the season,
Yeah.
it's between 20 and 30% or so.
So 30% of energy supply used by everybody in the country, because you cannot divide energy, it's from here and
They
from
try
there.
to divide it.
Do they?
Yeah, they try. Clean energy and not
Okay,
clean
then
energy.
those who is using more have a more chance to have host this waste, no? If they will divide it.
You know, this depends on the local conditions in the soil.
Okay, but then what?
It's not, you cannot drill holes for nuclear waste everywhere.
What do you do at the end with the waste?
The issue is not resolved.
Where are they, the waste?
For the moment, we export them to, I don't know, Italy or another country, but it's not a solution.
Other
We
countries
must
are-
find a solution in our country, and the exact location of these waste disposals have not yet been defined. And it's a fight between the central government and the local community.
Local community.
Yeah, so it's not so different in a way from.
So this is one of the issues you have you need a solution
It
in
is.
Switzerland.
It is. And direct democracy is important. Because if there is a referendum on the local level saying no nuclear waste hole in my neighborhood, the federal government cannot ignore it. It's difficult.
But yet, you need that power station.
Yes, we need this waste.
And
So-
it's your waste, and logically you have to accommodate waste as well.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
where it is to be located, in a mountain up in the rocks, or is it in an appropriate soil in the highlands? I don't know. It depends on the geology of the soil and everything. But just to say, the conflict is not so much different with the one that you might have in your country.
Okay.
With the mining
Now
industry.
my question, almost the last one, has not directly to do with our topic. Switzerland, we understand, being a politically neutral country, have benefited a lot, in the sense that you were not in the war for 800 over years, and you have a very good living standard. But however, recently your money becomes so expensive that you have started first time thinking what we will do. Please tell us about that. What happened?
With the
Yes.
Swiss franc?
Yes.
Well, they decided to stop the link between the euro and the Swiss franc that has been established 3 years ago at 1.20 francs 1 euro, because the euro has fallen too low. And the Swiss National Bank had to buy billions of euros every year in order to maintain this balance. And it's no longer possible because the euro has weakened too
So
much.
Swiss franc back it to euro, and now because the evaluation of euro, you have to spend a lot of money, which makes your money stronger and expensive.
It makes it expensive. It's very difficult for...
Which reflects in your export as well.
of course.
And do ordinary people feel it?
The opinions are divergent. I mean, some think it's a very good idea, and other things, export industry thinks it's rough, and also tourist industry is not very happy, because coming to Switzerland is much more expensive now for foreigners than,
Yeah,
than
20%
before.
expensive.
And tourism is important in some regions of the country. Others are very happy because it makes the Swiss franc an independent currency again, and not only a kind of a semi-euro thing.
So you are not
opinions
anymore
are
tied with the euro?
No, I think it will. I'm not an economist.
Yeah.
I think it will stabilize
Was
the
it
whole thing.
Who had decided for that? Also direct referendum?
No, the Swiss National Bank, totally independently, and the government learned it by the media.
Well,
They were not informed. It was an independent decision
we
by the
want
Swiss
such
National
a bank.
Yeah.
We want
Absolutely
such a
important.
central bank, which
Absolutely
completely depend on the
Totally
government.
independent.
Dr. Auer, that was very interesting topic. Of course, short time, but I know that you also have certain other presentations in the country.
That's true.
And I hope we will be learning more from you and your experience. And I think this sort of dialogue we had and the projects you are doing with the Swiss Development Council is very helpful, and thank you very much for that contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Auer, thank you.